everybody, my name is Joanna and there are two things that I really love. One of them is ranking and the other one is the owl house. If I'm being honest, I have no idea where my obsession with ranking began, but I like to do videos in this style for TV shows because then I get to talk about literally every single episode of the show. And in the topic of the owl house, well, it began airing when I was 14, just getting into high school, and I didn't begin watching it from the get-go because this was around the time I had stopped watching television, but my sister was watching it and she was like, I think you'll like this show, Joanna, you should watch it. And so I did watch it, and right from the first episode, I just had a feeling this was going to be a very special show for me. Ever since it ended last year, I always wanted to rewatch the whole thing because I had seen season 1 more than one time, but I had only seen season 2 and season 3, the episodes as they were coming out. I never rewatched them. And so I finally did it. I took literally a whole weekend to watch the Owl House only and only the Owl House. And after this whole weekend of watching literally only the Owl House, I decided to make a ranking of every single episode. Wow, I guess you couldn't guess that by the title of this video. Just a reminder before we begin, this is a ranking from my least favorite to my most favorite, not from worst to best. So it's okay if we disagree. This is not a professional opinion or something. I'm just a girl. Anyway, I think this should be fun, so let's go. Hello everybody, so my name is Joanna, but I also like to be positive sometimes. In 43rd place, the last place, we have the episode Once Upon a Swap, episode 8 in the first season, which is a pity because 8 is actually my favorite number, but that's fine. So this is the episode where Luz, King, and Nida decided to swap bodies because they think each other's lives are easier, and then by swapping bodies, they realize that it's actually not that case. I had already mentioned in the past that Once Upon a Swap is my least favorite episode of the Owl House, because it is, but I don't think I have anything negative to say about it really. It has its fun moments, like Freaky Friday, but overall it's just a cliche body swap episode, and the show knows it's a cliche body swap episode. They keep on making self-aware jokes about it. I don't know if this makes me like it more because in one way they understand that it's not a masterpiece and it's not supposed to, or like it less because, well, if you are aware this is a cliche episode, then try to think of an episode that is not that cliche. But it doesn't change the fact that I don't feel too strongly about this episode in general. I'm not mad at this because I think these filler episodes are important for us to start caring about the characters and their relationships, so I don't mind that it exists. Overall, this is a fine episode, and this is also the episode we learned that Ida wanted to join the Emperor's Coven back in the day, so that's interesting. Okay, in 42nd place, we have Really Small Problems, the 14th episode in season 1, and in this one, Luz, King, and Nida are going to a carnival, but Willow and Gus show up and start hanging out with Luz, so King gets jealous and ends up getting tricked into shrinking Willow and Gus, so now Willow and Gus are tiny. This is one of those King is feeling left out episodes, and I don't dislike it or anything, it's just a little cliche, kind of like Once Upon a Swap. I do like the moment in the end when King shares the friendship amulets with Willow and Gus. It's a really sweet moment. But I do think they make King in this episode to be more unlikable for some reason for the plot to work, which I don't like. But there are some funny moments in this episode too, like the carnival literally having a fun police and
not a single one of those dumb kids have gotten hurt yet.
Dumb kids? Wait. Those are my dumb kids!
Great moment. Also, I finished rewatching the show literally yesterday from the day I'm filming, and I was writing the script for this video literally a couple of hours after finishing the whole show. So with everything fresh in my mind, I need to say that, as I said, these silly little episodes in the first season are very important, even if a little unmemorable, because they serve to build the connections and relationship between the characters, which is so important for us to care to what is happening later. So that's fine by me. I understand why these episodes exist. They have their merit. In 41st place, we have Escape of the Palisman, 10th episode of season 1. This is the episode that Albert runs away, so he goes to the Bat Queen, and Luz goes to the Bat Queen to be like, oh, I need Albert back, and the Bat Queen gives her a bunch of trials that she has to be proven worthy to get Albert back. So this episode helped to expand our fantasy world, and it kept with the whole Palisman lore, which is something that I really enjoy about the Owl House universe, is the Palisman. I think they are so cool. And it's also showing that Ida's curse is getting worse, which is important for the first season plot. Basically, this episode has a lot of interesting stuff going on, and it is a little fun episode of shenanigans. It's just not my favorite one, which is okay. In 14th Am I doing this right? I don't know. In 40th, this is how you say. In place 40, it's wizards before witches, or witches before wizards. I think it's called Witches Before Wizards, the second episode in the first season. So yeah, this is literally the second ever episode in the show. And in this one, Luz is kind of disappointed that Ida doesn't want to teach her magic right away. So she's like, I'm going to discover magic. So she ends up in the castle of a wizard named Edegest, who tells her, you are the chosen one of this prophecy. Go on this mission. And then Luz goes on this mission, but turns out it was a scam, and she isn't actually a chosen one. That's awkward. I love how the first episode of the series was like, you are special and unique. And this episode is like, you think you're special? Nah. On a serious note though, I love how wizards before witches before wizards, I don't remember which is the order. Wait a second. Witches before wizards, I was correct. Is at the end of the day an episode about how you are the person who gets to attribute meaning and uniqueness to your life. Not some external force like a prophecy. I love a good chosen one story, but we obviously know that this isn't how things work in real life. So I like that the show is saying these type of things. I also think the visions of the illusions from Luz's quest turning into like dust, disappearing are so cool. They are kind of spooky, which I like. Yeah, overall I think this is a fun second episode. Not my favorite one, but still very good. So in 39th place, So in 39th place, we have the episode Something Ventured, Someone Framed, which is the 9th episode in the first season. And in this one, Gus is a part of the Human Appreciation Society in Hexside, but a guy shows up. I don't know how to say his name. He is important later, so I'm going to call him Medi because I don't know how to pronounce his name. I'm really sorry. It's like Bartholomew, but with an M, like Bartholomew. I don't know. I don't want to try to say his name wrong. I'm sorry, little guy. So yeah, Medi is like challenging his leadership in the society, Gus' leadership. So Gus is like, I'm going to show you guys a real human to prove that I know more about humans than Medi. And so he's like, Luz, why don't you come over to the Human Appreciation Society to show yourself that you're a human and they like humans, they appreciate humans, some might say. But there are some issues because Luz is actually expelled and banned from Hexside, so she cannot go there. So Gus lies to her that she's no longer banned and has to sneak her into Hexside so that she can go to the Human Appreciation Society thing. This is a fun little Gus-centric episode, and I like that because I like Gus. I like to see more of him. I also like to be back at Hexside because this is the second ever episode that takes place in there, so that's fun. It's a new setting. It's a magical school. That's a cool setting too. And I guess Ida's subplot in this episode is cute too. I don't have anything too deep to say about this episode. I think it's fine. It's needed because we need an episode addressing that Luz is no longer expelled and banned from Hexside. And I also like to see Ida realizing that even though she hated school herself, Luz is going to thrive there. So she allows Luz to go to school even if she herself didn't like it, which I think is cute. In place 38, we have the 6th episode of the first season, Hootie's Moving Hessel. And in this episode, Luz, Willow, and Gus are doing a moonlight conjuring together, which is this thing where they do a conjuring really to animate some inanimated object, and they were going to do it with a doll, but then they end up actually animating the whole owl house while Ida is away, so that's dangerous. And they are doing this because Emily is doing her own moonlight conjuring with her friends like Basha and her other friends, and they haven't invited Willow and Gus. So Luz is like, let's do it together then. This is a pretty fun episode. I love the pun in the title, and there are some very funny jokes too. And I also like that this one builds Willow, Gus, and Luz's friendship, and it also shows the three of them as very powerful witches. This is also the episode we learned that Willow and Amity used to be friends, so I'm excited to learn the backstory right there. I say as if I haven't seen the show. But yeah, this is a fun episode. I like it. The next one in place 37 is Adventures in Elements, episode 12 from season 1. In this episode, Luz learns that she has to know 2 spells in order to get into Hexside, or else she's going to the baby class. So Ida is like, I'm taking you to the Knees, which is a place in the Boiling Isles that has snow. And a place called the Boiling Isles has snow, but the place where I live doesn't. It's okay, I live in a tropical country. But that's not the point. Anyway, yeah, they are going to the snowy part of the Boiling Isles so that Luz can learn new spells. And Emily is also there because she's training with her siblings, Edric and Emira. Yeah, so the scene where Luz learns that magic is kind of everywhere is so, I'm sorry, magical. But it is, really.
It means magic is a gift from the island. It means magic is everywhere.
The score is so nice, and they always make me emotional when Luz is learning a new spell for some reason. Also, the Azora book club bit at the end is so cute. It's so nice to see Luz and Emity's friendship evolving from now on. And yeah, this is a fun episode. I like it. In place 36, we have the first episode in the series, A Lying Witch and a Warden. And this is the one that began it all, as I said, the first ever episode. Overall, I think this is a pretty good first episode. It introduces us to the main characters pretty well and shows us a little bit of the fantasy world we will be exploring. Luz is out of the bat such a likable protagonist, and I like that it introduces us to the themes of being true to oneself and confident in your own weirdness. And these themes exist throughout the whole show, so I like that they are introduced here and that they manage to have some sort of resolution to what is going on by getting all of those people out of the conformatorium while also not having solved all the issues, because obviously they are not going to solve prejudice just getting some people out of prison. So yeah, I think it's nice that they establish that the Boiling Isles has this pushback against being weird, because it's something that gets important later. I also like how the episode ends and shows us why Luz would want to stay in the Boiling Isles. Ida is also pretty likable from the beginning. She's super fun and funny, and King with his whole baby dictator thing is pretty cute, so I like him too. It's cute to see the whole us weirdos have to stick together too. And overall, I think this is a fun first episode. Also, I used to do schoolwork like Luz a lot when I was younger. Like, my math teacher always told us to do a portfolio at the end of each semester where we were supposed to write down subjects, like math subjects we were struggling with, which ones we could understand. This was like a graded project. And one time I decided to make mine in the form of a board game, because I felt like it. And it was really cool. I really liked the way it turned out, but that's not the point. One time I made a video about She's the Man as a PE assignment, and my teacher really liked it. He said it was conceptually really good. So that is why I'm a YouTuber now. Anyway, in place 35, we have Sense and Insensitivity, which is the 11th episode in the first season. And in this one, Luz and King decide to join a writing competition in a book fair, but they end up not getting along because they have different ideas as to where they want to take their book. And then Luz gives up, and so a publisher shows up to King and is like, do you want to publish this? And King is like, yeah, sure. And so they publish the book that King and Luz wrote together, and everybody loves it. And then the publisher is like, you guys have to write a new sequel very fast, or else you're going to die. And yeah, this is the plot of this episode, essentially. This is just a very fun episode. I love how it pokes fun at fanfic writing. And it also gives some commentary to the pressure of finishing Art Fest for money reasons. So that is interesting. This is also centered in King and Luz friendship, which I like because I like their friendship, I guess. And I also really like the subplot because this is when we see Ida and Lilith kind of beginning to get along for the first time in a long time, which I think is nice to see. As far as filler episodes go, this one is pretty fun. So in 34th place, it is The First Day, which is the 13th episode in season 1. And this is Luz's first day in Hexside, as the title suggests. And she discovers that you can only study one type of magic at Hexside. So she's like, I don't know which one to choose. And Principal Bump is like, so go to the potions track. And so she's studying potions, but she ends up getting in a mess, which makes her go to detention. And in detention, she meets a group of students that are also in detention, and they have their own way of studying every single magic track. I really like The First Day, probably because I really like Hexside as a setting. And also, this is the first episode that Principal Bump is shown as somewhat nice, and I really like Principal Bump. You can see that he is someone who is really trying to help his students and sees potential in all of them, but he has some issues because the system doesn't allow him to totally accommodate the students. And this is something I really like. This episode is also very clearly a critique of the education system, which I find pretty interesting. And also,
so you two go to the same school now. That doesn't change anything.
Anyway, so the next episode is Them's the Breaks Kid, which is the 15th episode in the second season. And in this one, Ida decides to tell Luz the backstory of how she met Rain when they were teenagers on a training program. And this is a cute little episode, and I do like how it makes us understand better why Ida is suffering so much with what is happening to Rain, because now we understand their relationship better, you know? In a character building perspective, I do find this episode important because we have to care about Rain and their relationship with Ida. But I will say it feels a little misplaced in this season, and maybe it is because it only comes out after Reaching Out and before Hollow Mind. So 2 phenomenal episodes, and then this is the episode in the middle. I mean, it is fun. I love to see Ida and Rain as kids, and I like to see how their relationship began because I am a sucker for a good childhood best friends to lovers trope. And it's actually really sad to see how focused Ida was in staying close to Lilith, knowing what we know that happens later with them. Also in this episode, we see that Principal Bump has always been the type of person to see potential in every student and want the best for his students, so that is pretty nice too. So yeah, this is a fine episode, just not my favorite. In episode 32, we have the 3rd episode of the show, I Was a Teenage Abomination, and I thought this episode was going to be at least in the top 15, you know, because I like it so much, because it is so iconic. It introduces us to so many special and important characters for later. So in this one, Luz meets Willow and decides to pretend to be her abomination in an abomination assignment so that she won't fail the class. This is the first time we see Hexside, the first time we meet Willow and Gus and Emily in her mean lesbian era. And there's just a lot of things that I really love about this episode. I love Hexside as a setting, as I've mentioned before. I love Willow, she's so cute. And I also love it when witches named Willow go absolutely feral. And as I said, I really like Hexside as a setting because I think the way they make it their own version of the magical school trope is really fun. I like how the lockers are monsters. I think this is a really cool touch. There's a lot of little details that I like about the way they showed the school. I also really like how this episode shows that Willow is only doing poorly in school because she's put in a track that doesn't value her natural abilities and inclinations, and that once she's put in the plant track, she starts doing better. Overall, I think this episode is pretty fun and introduces us to a lot of important things that for later, like Hexside and all these new characters. And I also like the B-plot about King learning to ask for help when he needs, I guess. I think it is a little cliche, but it's fun, so I like it. In place 31, we have the first episode of the second season, Separate Tides. In this one, Luz is feeling guilty that Ida and Lilith have lost their power. She's like, it's my fault. No, it's not your fault, Luz. But anyway, she's like, I have to get a job now because also they are struggling financially. So Luz is like, I'm getting a job. And so she begins working for this ship that is trying to hunt a thing that I don't know how to say the name, but turns out that this is a ship from the Emperor and the Golden Guard is there. Yay, Hunter, good to see you. Oh no, to this situation. And overall, I just really like this episode from a character perspective. Luz feeling like a burden and wanting to help, only for Ida at the end to tell her that she's not that, like she's not at fault for anything and she only made things better for Ida ever since coming into her life was really nice, was really sweet. And then I love Lilith's subplot about learning how to ask for help, just like King in the last episode I was talking about, but for Lilith a little bit more. I think I even like the subplot better than the main plot because I really like Lilith and Hoodie's friendship, and it's nice to see her learning that she doesn't have to be perfect all the time and that she doesn't have to have everything figured out. I think this is pretty interesting. But yeah, I like this episode. Also, Hunter talks for the first time. Good. I think I said he appears for the first time in this episode earlier. It's not the first time he shows up, but it's the first time he talks. So that's fun. In the place of the number 30, I always have trouble saying 30. In the place 30 is the episode Edge of the World, which is the 17th episode in the season 2. And in this one, King thinks he's going to finally find his biological family and his people, but that's not exactly what happens, unfortunately. I do like Edge of the World. I think it's nice that we finally get some answers about King. And it's honestly really sad to see how much he craves for his biological family to show up, you know. It's also really interesting that he's a Titan. So yeah, this is a pretty interesting episode. It's just not my favorite one. In place 29 is the episode Through the Looking Glass Ruins, which is the 5th episode in the second season. And in this one, so Gus is a very powerful illusion witch. He has even skipped some grades thanks to it, but he is doubting his skills. So he ends up joining a group of students from a different school named Glendos High, who invite him to go to the Looking Glass ruins, where they are going to find some stones that might make their illusion power stronger. But Gus shows up there and is like, this is actually an illusionist graveyard. Maybe we shouldn't be doing this. So this is another Gus-centric episode that I like. It establishes him as a very powerful illusion witch, as we talked about earlier. I also like his relationship development with Maddie, aka the guy whose name I cannot pronounce. I think their frenemies vibes are fun. Also, this episode has a cute Lumity subplot. It's cute when Emily kisses Luz's cheek, and Edric and Emra are being nice siblings now, I guess. I love to see Emra teasing Edric about his date, and both of them helping Emily change her hair color. I also think the purple looks really cute. I like it. In the 28th place is Foley's at the Coven Day Parade, which is the 11th episode in season 2. And I like that this episode, well, first of all, humanizes Kikimora. Second of all, deals with the aftermath of what happened to Rain at the end of Ida's Requiem. Third of all, shows Luz dealing with what happened at the end of yesterday's lie. Fourth, develops Luz and Emily's relationship because now Luz trusts Emily enough to tell her about what happened and open up to her, which is pretty nice. Fifth, shows A, buff Willow, and B, Willow and Emily growing closer. Just for context, this is A in Brazilian Sign Language, and this is B in Brazilian Sign Language, and this is C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P. Anyway, I'm not going to do the whole alphabet. And 6, Emily calling Luz Batata.
Hola, Batata.
That is so cute. So yeah, this episode does a lot of things, and I like they do everything pretty well. It's just not my favorite one, which is fine. In 27th place is Lost in Translation, the 7th episode in the first season. It pains me for this episode to be this low. This episode is the Boss Mabel of my The Owl House ranking, you know? One of the episodes that before I actually stopped to rank every single episode, I thought of as one of my favorite ones. And now it's in place 27. It doesn't feel right. So yeah, in this one, Luz goes to the library and sees that Emily is reading to children. Turns out she's an evil all the time, I guess. At this point, Emily and Luz are not getting along, but Luz wants to befriend everyone, so she's like, I'm going to try to get along with Emily. But then Emily's siblings show up, Edric and Emera, and they are pranking everyone in the library, and Luz kind of joins them, but they end up wanting to prank Emily too, which leads to some complications. I love to see more of Emily in this episode. I feel like in the first season, each episode that she shows up is building for us to understand her more and more. And I also like that we meet part of her family. I do think Edric and Emma kind of suck in this episode, which is sad because they don't suck in the rest of the episodes they are in. But yeah, this is what they needed for the plot. So overall, I really like to see a new side of Emily, like the side that reads to kids, that has trouble showing vulnerability, the side that apologizes to Luz. I feel like her construction as a character up until now has been really good. I also think this episode has a lot of really fun jokes.
And here we go towards our non-fiction section. Fiction? Fiction? Is our world but fiction? Then what in my life is real anymore?
If they exist in her, Buffy contains everything that is me, and she becomes me. I cease to exist.
And I love books, so I love to see characters bonding over reading. Luz lending her Azora book to Emily at the end is pretty cute. Yeah, I don't have any complaints about this episode. Maybe that the subplot is kind of forgettable. I mean, it's cute. Like the baby bad things are cute, but not my favorite one, which is fine too. In the place 26 of the ranking is Keeping Up Appearances, the 4th episode in the second season. I said second in a very weird way. And this is the episode where Ida's mom, Gwen, shows up and is like, I found a cure for your curse. And no, she didn't. She was just scammed into a MLM scheme. So yeah, this episode builds up on the whole metaphor that Ida's curse is kind of like a disability or a chronic illness that was established in The Intruder. Gwen has the best intentions trying to cure Ida's curse, but she doesn't realize that this is only hurting Ida more. I find the ending of this episode in which Gwen apologizes to Ida and tells her that she loves her, including her curse, because the curse is a part of who she is. Really beautiful and powerful. I also like that she acknowledges that she neglected Lilith and also apologizes. I feel like this is pretty good character building, so I really like this episode. In 25th is the episode, Oh Titan, Where Art Thou? I don't know how to read Old English, and I especially don't know how to read it without doing a British accent in my head, but as we all know, I'm very bad with accents, so maybe I shouldn't have said that. Anyway, this is the 19th episode in season 2, and this is a fine episode that very much feels like a build-up for a finale. Like, it's giving Spiral episode 20 season 5 of Buffy the Vampire Slayer, you know? This is a very needed and fine episode. It's just not that remarkable to me. Although I did find the whole bit about Lilith not knowing how to treat King now she knows he's a Titan because she doesn't know how to deal with authority in a healthy way pretty funny.
Unhand him, you coven shill! Wait, Steve? It's okay. He's not a scout anymore. Nevertheless, let me shield you with my pitiful life, oh powerful Titan. Stop! I'm still king! Isn't this how you acted with the Emperor? I'm sensing a little bit of a pattern with you.
Hey girl, I've been there. I can recommend a good therapist.
And it's really sweet that it ends with Luz going on to carve her own talisman with the help of Vida. It's so cute. In the 24th place, it is the 3rd episode in season 2, Echoes of the Past. And in this one, Lilith is like, I don't believe King is the king of demons. So King is like, I'm taking you guys to the castle where Ida found me, so I will prove that I am the king of demons. But they go there and turns out King isn't the king of demons, guys. Boo. This episode is just very emotional. We finally get to learn a little bit more about King's actual backstory, and the whole situation of him learning that his whole existence up until now was not what he thought it was is pretty sad. But this episode manages to show that while also having some pretty funny moments and building up for things that are coming next. And I also like it because I am a sucker for the found family trope. In the 23rd place is Yesterday's Lie, which is the 10th episode in season 2. And in this one, Luz is finally able to open a portal to the human realm, but she gets stuck in between realms, and she's only able to see that a basilisk named V has taken her place in the human realm and is pretending to be her. I remember before this episode came out, people used to call V Evil Luz, and after it everyone wanted to apologize because V is so cute, and yes, she is, and she has an incredibly sad backstory. The scene where the conspiracist guy traps her is genuinely so sad because we can really see how terrified and traumatized she is of that. Camila finding out that Luz chose to stay in the Boiling Isles is also super sad, and this was the mid-season finale when it came out, so there was like a pretty big gap between this and the next episode, and I was like, this is how we are going to have to wait with this super sad last scene. And yeah, I think this is a very needed episode to address everything that is going on in the human realm while Luz is doing her thing in the Boiling Isles. And it's also pretty emotional. I like that it shows Camilla as a mom who's trying her best and doesn't always get it right, but she's trying. Also, it's really cute that she lets V stay with her, and she has this incredible line.
I'm the good guy here.
Yeah, a lot of bad guys say that.
In place 22 is the 7th episode in season 2, Ida's Requiem. I'm sorry, I don't know how to say this word. Yeah, in this episode, Ida is in her sad girl hours because she thinks both King and Luz are going to leave her for their respective families. And so she goes out and she ends up meeting this rebel group called the Bats that are led by Rain, who is her ex-partner. And so she and Rain go on a mission together and they plan the mandolin. They are almost dying because of it, but Rain is like, wait, Ida, you have children? Like, don't die. Go to your children. And so she runs away and Rain ends up getting captured by Kikimora. Yeah, I think Ida and Rain's relationship is pretty well built for such a small time that we get to know them, you know? And I think this pays off pretty well in one of the most emotional scenes of the show. Also, this whole episode's arc of Ida realizing that no matter what she thinks, Luz and King do see her as family and do value her a lot is just really sweet. And I like how they keep on building and hyping up what is going to happen in the Day of Union in a pretty interesting way in this episode. And they are able to make us feel for Rain getting frozen in the magical slumber a la Apple White and Dragon games. I don't know how to explain exactly what happens to them, but you know what I mean. And we are able to feel for them even though we were introduced to them like a couple of minutes ago. Also, the scene of them and Ida playing together is really beautiful. I think the score is super nice and it's all really well animated. And obviously, the best moment in this episode is King telling Ida that he's going to change his name to King Lothar. It is so cute. I love it so much. In place 21 in my ranking is the second episode in the second season, Escaping Expulsion. A lot of interesting things happen in I cannot say this, Escaping Expulsion. It feels more like a start to season 2 than Separate Tides feels like, I feel. How many times did I say feel in this sentence? First of all, we finally get to meet Emily's parents, and 1, Odalia sucks, and 2, Alador also sucks because he's complacent to his wife manipulating their children, so that's not fun. Second of all, Luz is clearly starting to like Emily too, so I think it's cute. And third of all, I think it's interesting to see the different ways Lilith and Ida are finding to learn how to deal with their new powers. I think it's a pretty interesting way to explore how their different personalities manage to go through the same situation. I think it's pretty nice. The next one is the 12th episode in season 2, Elsewhere and Elsewhen. And in this one, Luz finds out that there are puddles in the Boiling Isles that let you go to a different time frame. So she's like, I'm going to the time where Philip, I don't know how to say his last name. This is embarrassing. Yeah. But anyway, she's like, I'm going to the time where Philip existed to ask him if he knows anything about going to the human realm or going back from the human realm. Anyway, if he knows anything. And Lilith is coming along with her in this quest. Okay, I feel like it's pretty obvious that Emperor Bellis is Philip. But I do think it's better for a twist to be kind of obvious but well established than feeling like it came out of nowhere because there were no clues. I also like how this episode sets up the idea that Emperor Bellis has been waiting for the Day of Unity this whole time because, I don't know, it keeps on hyping up this Day of Unity. It's pretty interesting. And I just remember this whole episode making me very anxious and at the same time excited for the next episodes that were coming out. Also, I like Lilith being a weird aunt in this episode. And Ida's subplot of learning to accept forgiveness from her father is really beautiful. I think the Owl House really shines with family relationships writing. And I think it's really nice that we also learned that it was Ida and her father who built Albert together. That was really nice. In 19th place is actually in episode 19, the 19th episode of season 1, Youngblood, Old Souls, and this is the season finale of season 1, and I like it a lot, to be honest. One of my favorite character archetypes is indoctrinated, rule-following person who discovers everything they believed in is 1, either a lie, or 2, very harmful, and decides to make amends and evolve as a person. Matthias is one of my favorite crows. So I love Lilith, and I love her little character development here too. We can see that she only had this whole faith in the Coven system because she really wanted to help Ida. So it doesn't feel forced when she goes against the Emperor. The moment where Lilith does the spell that makes the curse be shared between her and Ida is so powerful to me. It's really beautiful, and I'm always really interested in Lilith and Ida's relationship drama. And in general, I think this is a very good season 1 finale. We finally get to see the Emperor, and we finally see more of the influence of his actions throughout the story of the Boiling Isles and how he got to be in power. And I think it is pretty interesting that he earned his credibility by saying that he can communicate with a titan. It kind of reminds me of political leaders who use religion and saying that they have a direct connection to God to get into their positions, which I find pretty interesting for a Disney cartoon to be talking about, you know? Also, this is the first time we see Hunter, so that's fun. And in place 18 is also an 18th episode, the 18th episode of season 2, Labyrinth Runners. So in this one, Gus finds Hunter living at Hexside and is like, what are you doing here? And Hunter refuses to answer. This is my favorite Gus-centric episode, and I love how they decided to show his anxiety through the lens of his illusions. Also, Hunter slowly learning how to trust people again and befriending Gus is something that helps both of their character arcs, which I think is really nice. I also love to see Amity and Willow growing closer, even closer, and getting a Sailor Moon-esque fight scene. I love that. In 17th place is the episode 20 in season 2, Clouds on the Horizon, and just like Oh Titan, where art thou? Clouds on the Horizon also feels like a build-up for a finale, but I like it better because there are some nice moments in this episode that I really like Lumidi's first kiss, Alador finally standing up and stopping to be his wife's cachorrinho, the cats, and Luz, King, and Ida's not goodbye that gets really sad when we know what happens after this. But anyway, yeah, it's a good episode. I like it. In 16th place is the 14th episode in season 2, Reaching Out. I think this episode and many other ones in season 2 do a thing really well, that is focusing on character development while also progressing the plot. So in Reaching Out, we get to learn a little bit more about Luz's father, about how he passed away. It's the anniversary of his passing, and Luz is spending the whole day trying to ignore her difficult feelings of grief and sadness, which she learns that isn't a healthy thing to do at the end, which is nice. And this is also the episode where Emily stands up for herself and tells Alador that she doesn't want to join the Emperor's Coven anymore. And it's nice to see her relationship with her father changing, even though it's still baby steps because he was complacent to his wife's abuse of their children, so that's not fun, as I mentioned earlier. But it's good that in this episode he at least realizes he was in the wrong, and the show acknowledges that he was in the wrong too. And I also liked that we got some exploration of Edric's character and more of his insecurities. I find him interesting and fun as a character. And lastly, seeing Luz and Emily doing the little tradition Luz and Camilla had together is a really sweet moment. I really think this episode is really good. In the 15th place is the 6th episode in season 2, Hunting Palisman. And it's Palisman pairing day in Hexside. But Luz isn't able to get any Palisman because she isn't that sure about what she wants for her future. And while this is going on, Emperor Belus is a little sick. So he tells the Golden Guard, whom we know as Hunter, to go find Palisman for him. Luz and Hunter end up working together in this episode even though they don't like each other. And he even tells her that his name is Hunter. This is finally when we discover his name, yay. Also, at the end of the episode, Hunter matches with his own Palisman, Flapjack. As I mentioned before, I love a good storyline about an indoctrinated character learning that their way of thinking is wrong and all the angst that comes with it. So I love Hunter. I think he's a super compelling character from the minute he's introduced. And it's very easy to understand the way he acts and the decisions he makes, even though we don't agree with what he's doing. I also love that Flapjack is his Palisman, 10 out of 10. And in the topic of Palisman, as I mentioned earlier, I love this whole Palisman thing in the Owl House, so I'm happy that this is another episode dedicated to them. Also, I love the contrast in the end of this episode of the way Bellows, who is Hunter's uncle, talks to him, and the way Ida, who is kind of like Luz's mother figure in the Boiling Isles, talks to her. It's such a clear difference that it makes you empathize with Hunter a lot more. And so yeah, I really like this episode and all that introduces, and it's so clear to see Luz's character development up until now in it too, which I love. In the 14th place is an episode that I thought was going to make it to my top 10, but it didn't, I guess. But it is Winged Like Witches, the 17th episode in the first season. So in this episode, Willow, Luz, and Gus are being bullied by Bocha. Fun fact, Bocha is the Portuguese word for a sport that they say, at least my mom says, this is an expression my mom uses, that when it's raining a lot, they say Saint John is playing Bocha in the sky. That is why it's raining. Anyway, that's not the point. So yeah, Bocha is bullying them, and she's the Grudge Bee team captain in Hexside. And so Luz has the brilliant idea of challenging Bocha in a Grudge Bee match in the name of Willow, even though the three of them are not Grudge Bee players. Although Willow is a little better, but the thing is, they are not very good, and so shenanigans happen. This is definitely a top tier filler episode to me. There's never a dull moment. I love the training montage. I love it poking fun of Quidditch from Harry Potter. I love all of Emily's gay panics throughout this episode.
Oh, Luz, you're here. I mean, obviously you're here. This is school, and you go here now with me. I've been talking for too long.
What about you, Amity?
Me? On a team with you? Running around in cute uniforms? Sweating? I gotta go! But I'll be okay.
Are you sure? I could help carry you if it really hurts.
I'm fine! Who's Amity?
Amity, we need your help.
Yes, I can help! With what exactly?
And scoop!
Oh, wow. Sports.
Emily in general standing up for Willow and joining their friend group is really nice too. And I think Luz is a good friend in this episode, and I really like Willow and Gus, so I like to see more episodes with them. And I also like to see Lilith and Ida interacting in this episode because we know what is the episode that is coming next after this one, so it's really interesting to see them interacting with each other before knowing what we know then. Also, this is the first time we see Lilith and Hootie interacting, so that's fun. In place 13 is the 21st episode of the second season, King's Tide. This is the season. I was going to say season. This is the season 2 finale. And I don't know if there is a way to explain the way I felt after watching King's Tide for the first time. Like that whole ending, I really didn't know how to react. It also earned me my first semi-viral tweet in my life, so that was fun. But really, I think this is a really good finale. Definitely better than season 1. I really like the collector too. The Brazilian fandom actually gave him a nickname, Enzo Gabriel, because he has the energy of a 6-year-old boy named Enzo Gabriel who is going to ask you to play with him, ask you if you have games on your phone, and will be wearing Spider-Man sandals. I think this is such a fun vibe for a villain character, and he's very different from Emperor Belus too, which I find interesting. This whole episode just has a very epic feeling, and the whole ending with Luz having to let go of King, it just makes me so emotional.
Luz, I'm so happy I had you as a big sister.
No! I really like it. I think it's a very brilliant and sad way to end season 2. In place 12 is the 4th episode in the first season, The Intruder, and I thought this was going to be in my top 10. It's weird that it isn't. So anyway, in this episode, it's raining in the Boiling Isles, and turns out rain in the Boiling Isles is boiling. I don't know, shocking. So they have to stay inside of the owl house, and Ida is very exhausted and sleepy, so she goes to bed. And King is trying to teach Luz about demons, but she doesn't seem to be interested in that. Anyway, then an intruder shows up, and it's like a demon, and it's hunting Luz and King. But turns out the intruder is actually Ida in a cursed form. Ooh, big plot twist right there. So yeah, The Intruder has such an eerie, spooky vibe that I really love. It gives me the same feeling of that one Jessie episode where the blonde girl from Ant Farm wants to marry Luke, if you know what I mean. I love the tone of this whole episode being kind of like a mystery, and they are stuck in the owl house. I love a good we are stuck in a place and it's kind of spooky storyline. I feel like it's pretty obvious that Ida is the demon chasing them, but it's a good reveal, and I also like how Ida's curse, as I said, it's kind of like a metaphor for a chronic illness, which is something that gets expanded more later. This episode also has some nice Luz and King character and relationship building, which I like. It establishes one of the main things of the season, which is finding out who cursed Ida. And also, this is the first time Luz learns how to do any kind of magic. And I think it's cute that her first spell she does is a light spell, considering Luz is light in Spanish and also in Portuguese. And also, the scene of her doing the magic spells is so, I don't know, it makes me emotional. It feels so beautiful for some reason. In 11th place is the first episode in season 3, Thanks to Them. And I think Thanks to Them is an episode that balances out a lot of different things really well. I like the lighthearted parts of the episode of the Boiling Isles characters getting used to the human realm. And then the ending of this episode is just so sad. So Hunter gets possessed by Bellows and ends up killing his first friend, Flapjack. It is so sad. This boy really cannot catch a break. I also liked that Luz's guilt over the whole Bella situation being addressed, although obviously it isn't her fault. We know that this is not how she's feeling. I like that the things that happen in the show have repercussions to the characters and their minds and feelings. And there are a lot of nice moments in this episode too, like Willow cutting Hunter's hair, probably my favorite part of this episode. Emily seeing the rain for the first time is also super nice. The whole intro really super iconic, and also Duolingo being canon in the Owl House universe. Also, by the way, how is Camila feeding 6 children on a veterinarian salary? Okay guys, in time for my top 10, and in the 10th place is episode 18 from season 1, Agony of a Witch. And I guess, this is such a tone-shifting episode, I think. Getting to see the Emperor for the first time is pretty intriguing, and his design early on is pretty interesting, I think. And talking about his whole deal as a villain, I love the idea of a villain who keeps his power by restricting magic use and makes it all be just a normal part of society. I think it's a really well-built thing for a villain. I will say I think the first 2/3 of this episode are pretty okay, average, but the last third is so good. Lilith and Ida's magical battle scene is so good. It's probably my favorite one in the whole show. And I like that Ida tells Lilith that Lilith might be better, in a better position, but it's only because she's working for a corrupt, controlling government. I also love the reveal that Lilith was the one who cursed Ida. And upon retrospect, it's pretty obvious. Because who else would it be? No, but really, who else would it be? It has to be someone that has some sort of emotional connection to Ida, or else it would mean nothing for us. I love that it's Lilith. I feel like it makes perfect sense, and I love the moment this is revealed. Also, Ida sacrificing herself at the end really shows how much she grew to love Luz and King as her own children, which is really nice. And it's such an emotional moment that makes me sad, even though I know that Ida ends up just fine. In ninth place is Knock Knock Knocking on Hootie's Door, the 8th episode in season 2. There's a reason why 8 is my favorite number, guys. There's just so much good stuff happening in this episode. First of all, I love that this is a Hootie-centric episode and that everything happens thanks to him. Justice for Hootie, guys. And yeah, so many great character things are happening in this episode. First of all, we get a little bit more insight into King. We discover that first of all, he's not a demon, and second of all, he's very powerful, which is interesting and building up to the reveal that he's a titan that we get later, so that's fun. And it makes us curious for what is going to happen later. And second of all, probably my favorite part of this episode is Ida being more accepting of her curse and seeing her curse as a part of who she is. I love the moment that she is in her own mind talking to the owl beast and making amends with it. It's really nice. And third of all, Lumiry's canon now, guys. I think their whole thing in this episode is super cute. And it also shows a lot of Luz's character to see how scared she was of being perceived as weird to Amity. But we know Amity herself says it, that she isn't that cool herself. So, and yeah, they are so cute together, and I love that they are shopping and traveling together. Good for them, you know? Overall, I think the pacing in this episode is really good. I think the 3 plot points get their needed time and don't feel too rushed or too long. I also love the narrative framing of this being a letter from Hootie to Lilith, because I love their friendship. And what a way to make us happy that Hootie's finally helping all the characters, only to make him eat King's father, quote unquote, letter at the end just to make us angry. Fun times. I love this episode. In 8th place is the 9th episode in the 2nd season, Eclipse Lake. And I don't even know where to begin talking about Eclipse Lake because I really love this episode and I think it's very underrated. First of all, I love to see Emperor Bellow's face for the first time and notice the way he treats Hunter. He doesn't raise his voice, he doesn't use any violence, but his subtle threat to replace Hunter, and knowing what we know now of what this means, it's super eerie and manipulative. And I think Hunter at this point is a super interesting character to follow too, because we can empathize with him while also recognizing that his goals don't align with what our main characters that we support want. So it's interesting. I also love to see Amity getting more of the spotlight today and getting to learn more about her insecurities in her relationship with Luz. Because up until this point, Amity has been a lot about trying to get other people's approval. It's obvious that she's going to feel some insecurities in her relationships, and I think it's a nice way that they address this. It's actually really sad to think that Amity was raised in such a sad way that she thinks love and affection are things that can be taken away if you don't meet certain expectations. It's super sad. Also, having Amity and Hunter interacting is really good because as the show acknowledges, they are similar people, but Amity is in healing and Hunter isn't there yet. And I just love Amity's little speech to Hunter. It's probably one of my favorite moments in the show.
I grew up thinking that everything was an opportunity to justify existing. But there are people out there who won't make you feel worthless. You just have to let yourself meet them.
It's so good. And their fight scene is also amazing. One of my favorite ones in the whole show. I think I like it better than Lilith and Nida's fight in the season 1 finale thing. Do I? I think I like it better than the fight that Lilith and Nida have in Agony of a Witch, now that I'm thinking about it. Do I? I don't know, I really like it. So A+ to the main plot of this episode, and I also find Luz's subplot fun. The episode in 7th place is Any Sport in a Storm, which is the 13th episode in season 2. And in this one, Hunter is trying to prove himself to the Emperor and the Emperor's Coven, so he decides, actually he doesn't decide it, Darius tells him to go recruit people to the Emperor's Coven. So he goes to Hexside and he disguises himself there and ends up joining the Flying Derby team that is being led by Willow. And he ends up befriending everyone there and regrets only befriending them in the pretense of telling them to join the Emperor's Coven. And then at the end, we discover that Darius only sent him there because he wanted Hunter to go interact with some kids his age. Hunter's lack of understanding of how teenagers act is so endearing and sad at the same time.
Look at all these potential recruits. Sure, I've never actually spoken to which is my age. Teens are probably into the same things as me, like authority and rules.
But I particularly like authority and rules Hunter, so I think we would get along. Anyway, I think it's kind of ironic to me how much I love sports-centered filler episodes because I hate sports in real life. But any sport in a storm is everything to me. I absolutely adore this episode. I love how by putting Hunter to interact with some kids his age, we see that the way he was raised really internalized in him a lot of really harmful things about basically everything. I think it's really sad that he's constantly working really hard to get approval because he doesn't feel whole as a person for not being a witch. And I like that Willow is able to connect with him in some sort of way because of being half a witch, Willow. Seriously, it's really nice to see Hunter interacting with some people his age who are not constantly manipulating him. And it's funny that Darius in this episode was like, go touch some grass, Hunter. The subplot with Luz and Emily in this episode is also really fun. I like to see them going to find if the author of the Azora books is human or not. And I like the resolution of it. I think it's pretty funny and it gives me Scooby-Doo stage fright vibes.
Stay away from my man-home record.
In sixth place is the 15th episode in season 1, Understanding Willow. And in this episode, we understand Willow. I'm very proud of this joke. So yeah, Luz and Willow are going to photography class, and in this class they take photos of your mind that are your memories, and if you damage these photos, your memories are going to be damaged. And so they are doing this of Willow's memories, and Luz sees a picture of Willow and Emily when they are kids, and she's like, what is up with that, Willow? You and Emily should probably go back into being friends. And Willow is like, I'd rather not. And so they leave, and Emily sees the photo and is like, what if I destroy this? Because she doesn't want Willow to remember the memory of that day. So Emily goes on to burn only that photo, but she ends up burning all of Willow's memories. So now Emily and Luz have to go inside of Willow's mind to restore her memories. And then we also learned the truth about that photo, that it was taken the day Emily's parents told her to stop associating with Willow because she was half a witch and the Blights only associated with the best. I really love Understanding Willow. I love that it begins with Willow not wanting to think about her old friendship with Emily because she doesn't want to deal with it. As she herself says it, out of mind, out of sight. Out of sight, out of mind, I mean. Which isn't very healthy. And then both Emily and Willow end up getting some sort of closure after this episode. Emily apologizes to Willow because although she was manipulated by her parents, she still didn't need to be so cruel to Willow this whole time. And Willow is now accepting of having some sort of relationship with Emily for now, but it's only the beginning because these things take time. It's always nice to have an episode centered on Willow because I like Willow. And yeah, I think this episode, it's nice. It takes place in Hexside, which I like. I like all the characters, and I like the B plot. I think it's pretty funny how Gus ends up choosing Hootie to be interviewed, and Hootie being just really annoying is really funny.
My first word was hoot. My second word was hoot hoot. My third word...
Hootie, you gotta stay on track here, buddy.
Here's a song I wrote. Board.
I can't take this anymore.
I'm just like Hootie for real. So top 5, guys, and in 5th place is Watching and Dreaming, the finale of The Owl House. And I think this episode was everything it needed to be. I tend to like more character-focused stuff than action, so that is why I prefer For the Future over this one. But I really like the way The Owl House ended. And I really don't know what other type of ending I could have asked for the show, you know? Obviously, I would have liked to had a full 3rd season, but with the time they had, I think this was a pretty good ending. I cried a lot during it. What made me start crying was Willow and Hunter building a grave for Flapjack, and Gus finally seeing his dad was the moment that broke me, I think. I also like that they acknowledged that some parts of society still need some fixing after the Emperor was defeated, and them having to rebuild the whole Boiling Isles together. I think it was a nice moment. I really don't know what to say. I just really like this ending. I think it was perfect for what the show was trying to do, and I got really emotional that the show ended with 3, 2, 1, bye. I also wish we could major in more than one thing in Brazilian colleges. You can only choose one major. It's pretty sad. Okay, 4th place is an episode that I think might be shocking to some people to be so high, and it is Convention, the 5th episode in season 1. And to be honest, it is surprising to me too that this episode is so high. But after rewatching it, I've come to realize that I actually really enjoyed this episode. There's so much to love about it. First of all, I think the idea of the existence of covens is a very fun thing for a fantasy witch world. I like the whole idea of that by joining a coven, you have to give up all of your other types of magical powers. because this is such a classic population control method, just like how Vida keeps on pointing out. So this is the beginning of painting the Boiling Isles as a place with a questionable government. But at the same time, we see the good sides of covens, as Luz herself says it. It gives everyone a sense of community and belonging. So I like that they are trying to give some nuance to this whole situation, and how it can be good in some cases, but overall kind of bad. It gives some complexity to the system. Second of all, I really like all the character stuff happening in this episode. This is the episode we meet Lilith for the first time, and her whole relationship with Ida is pretty interesting. While Ida is fun and rebellious and a criminal, Lilith is completely integrated into the system. She's in the Emperor's Coven, she wants Ida to join it, and we can see that she seems to be very uptight in general. I love the contrast between Lilith and Ida in the way they see the world. And their magic fight scene in this episode is really cool too. And then there's also Emily in this episode that is kind of like Lilith. I love the moment in this episode where Emily admits that she dislikes Luz so much because Luz just shows up and does stuff, while Emily has been preparing her whole life to be the best. To her, it's unfair that Luz is trying to do well. And I love this. I think Emily is such an interesting character in the beginning of the show. And the scene that she tells Luz that the bond between them is unbound and Luz can keep on practicing magic, and tells her, you know, humans cannot be witches, but I doubt that will stop you.
The oath is unbound. Did it work? Can I still learn magic? Humans have no magical ability, but I doubt that'll stop you.
For some reason, this moment gives me chills. I love it. It's my favorite part of the whole episode and the reason why I like convention so much. I don't know. I think this is a pretty important episode to build what is coming next in the show, obviously, but I really like it in general. Okay, guys, time for the podium, top 3. And in third place is For the Future, the second episode in the third season, my favorite third season episode. And I know that For the Future has to solve a lot of things before the actual finale, so I understand why so many people found it rush, but at the same time, I really like it. First of all, Luz finally coming to the conclusion that up until now, all that she has wanted is for people to understand her and her to be seen. And her finally feeling understood by Camila was so powerful. It was one of my favorite moments in the whole show. And obviously, she gets a shape-shifting talisman, obviously. Second of all, we have Willow. And Willow is a character that I love and I wish I'd had more time to develop. But I understand that there wouldn't be enough time, so I do like the way they solved her whole character stuff. I mean, she's going through a lot of things in this episode. She has a whole mental breakdown. She recovers from said mental breakdown. She almost kills a girl who used to bully her. Like, Willow is going through it, you know. But I really like her whole character evolution. And I might be biased because I really like her friendship with Gus. And I also ship Hunter and Willow, so I love to see them interacting. Also, Hunter has powers now, and I'm sorry to be cheesy, but I like that this means that Flapjack is always going to be a part of him. I also like that we finally get some insight into the Collector, because up until now, he didn't seem to have a lot of motivations. To be fair, up until now, he had been built up as this little kid-like character who just wants to play, which is fine, but at least they attempted to explain that the Collector is just a kid who feels lonely and bored, and honestly, as the youngest sibling, I totally get him. And I actually love what the Collector did to the Boiling Isles. Well, I don't know if love is the right word because I don't like it, but like I think it's cool that he turned everything into his big playground and made everyone turn into dolls and puppets. It was so cool. And everything being in bright colors and with glitter. I don't know, I really liked it. And again, now I finally understand why season 2 was working so hard to make us feel for Rain and like them. It makes it a lot more powerful now that Bellows is possessing them. And I also like to see how much Lilith and Ida's relationship has evolved up until this episode. It's really nice. So yeah, I understand why For the Future is considered a little rushed to a lot of people, but I really love it. And I love the whole Hextide shenanigans. I actually think it's super interesting that Basha seems to be dealing with a lot of survivor's guilt in that moment, and it seems like Hikimura is kind of taking advantage of that, so that is pretty interesting too. I don't know, I really like this episode. In second place is an episode that is considered by many the best in the show, and it is Hollow Mind, the 16th episode in season 2. This is the episode where Luz and Hunter end up in Emperor Bella's mind. And Hunter finally realizes that Emperor Bella's is evil, and that this whole time, Hunter is a Grimwalker. This is something we learned for the first time too. I don't know if there is a way for me to explain how much I love Hollow Mind. I love that it's being shown again that Bellows' biggest weapon is manipulation. He has been manipulating the Boiling Isles for such a long time with this whole titan thing, as I mentioned earlier. And it fascinates me so much that he's a witch hunter. Kind of reminds me of that one meme. People voting for the leopards eating your face party, being surprised when the leopard eats their faces. Yeah, Emperor Belus is basically a fascist leader using religion to exterminate a group of people he doesn't like, the witches. And I love that. I mean, I don't love that he's a fascist or anything. I don't love what he's doing, but I love that as a villain. And I think it ties perfectly to what has been established about the Boiling Isles up until now, and also the themes of the show of celebrating and respecting diversity and uniqueness. Obviously, the villain of the show goes against that. I love how eerie and dark this whole episode feels, not only because the Emperor's mind itself is a pretty scary place, but also thanks to Hunter, because Hunter in this episode is finally realizing that his whole existence is a lie. And now that we as an audience finally learn that Emperor Belus is literally creating a new Golden Guard every time the old one goes against him, which is super scary. It's all just really dark, and it's so sad to see Hunter trying to rationalize Emperor Belus' actions throughout this episode, because he really doesn't want to believe that Emperor Belus is evil. And as I said, I love this type of storyline, I love this type of angst, so obviously this episode was made for me. I also think it's pretty interesting that they managed to fit Emperor Belus' storyline in the paintings behind the characters, because there wouldn't be enough time to explore that. And also, I think it's really weird that he cut off his ears so that he would look more like a witch. Creepy. Overall, Hollow Mind is such a creepy and good episode that I'm completely obsessed with. I totally understand why so many people consider it the best in the show, and I would agree in a objective sense, but my favorite one, the Joanna favorite of the day, is also a fan favorite, and it is Enchanting Grumfried, the 16th episode in the first season, shocking absolutely no one. I mean, are we surprised about this? To be fair, I was going to put Hollow Mind in first place, and Enchanting Grumfried was going to be my second place, but I stopped to think about it, and I was like, no, I have seen Enchanting Grumfried at least 15 times. I feel like it deserves the first spot. And I also don't know where to begin talking about Enchanting Grumfried. First of all, I usually love prom-themed episodes, or like dances in general. You guys know what my favorite Gravity Falls episode is, and I liked the way the Owl House did it. Obviously, in the Boiling Isles, Grum is actually a monster that you have to face if you are the Grum king or queen or monarch, and it takes the form of your biggest fear, obviously. I think having a monster that takes the form of the character's biggest fears is such a good way to, and I like how it helps us understand both Luz and Amity better after this one. With Luz, I like that we are finally acknowledging that she was supposed to be in the human realm at summer camp, and I remember being very fascinated by the revelation that there was someone sending letters pretending to be Luz to Camilla. Also, having her fear being facing her own mom makes a lot of sense, and I like that one of her fears is also getting into a bad argument fight on the internet. But yeah, I'm also afraid of that, not going to lie. With Amity, I also think it's pretty interesting that she's so afraid of getting rejected, but it makes perfect sense when you think about it, because Amity is totally all about getting other people's approval, and she's afraid of getting rejected for being who she is. For the first time, she's not doing necessarily something because someone tells her to do it, and she's afraid that Luz is not going to accept her and not going to like her. So I think this is a pretty interesting thing that makes total sense with her character.
Going soft on me, Blight?
In your dreams.
And obviously, we have to talk about Lumity, guys. At this point, it's pretty clear that Amity likes Luz. I don't think Luz likes Amity at this point yet, but it's fun, it's fine. And their dance/magic battle scene is so good. Probably my favorite scene of the whole show. Have I said this about some scene before? I don't remember, I think I have. But it is my favorite scene in the whole show. The animation is so cool and fluid, the score is so good, and the combination of it being a dance and also a battle makes perfect sense. I love it. 10 out of 10. And I have also watched this episode like thousands of times, so I have a lot of emotional attachment and nostalgia that has to do with how much I love it. And so guys, this is my ranking. I know I didn't cry in this video like I did back in my Gravity Falls one, but upon rewatching The Owl House, I was reminded as to why I loved this show so much. As I mentioned earlier, it began coming out when I was 14 and it ended when I was about to turn 18, so I feel like I grew up with these characters in some sort of way. This show brought me a lot of comfort during my high school days. It helped me deal with my own feelings of inadequacy. I don't know how to say this, of not fitting in. And it reminded me of how fun watching a show in like real lifetime and talking about it can be, which is something that I kind of miss about it. I think we should all remember what the Owl House taught us, that it's up to us to make our lives unique and special. And I want to finish off this video with a quote, just like I did with Gravity Falls, but I couldn't find a quote that I really thought was the thesis of this video, so I'm just going to say the cliche one: us weirdos have to stick together and nobody should be punished for who they are, which is very cliche, but I agree with it. I do think nobody should be punished for who they are. I know, very controversial take right there. And thank you so much for watching this video, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed my ranking. Comment down below what is your favorite episode or your least favorite episode, but let's all be nice to each other, okay? Also, thank you so much for all the love in my last video about Ever After High. I'm super happy that you guys liked it, and I have to finish this video fast because I'm getting sick from staring at the lighting for such a long time. Like, it's making me physically ill, so I have to finish this. Thank you so much for watching again. I hope you guys enjoyed this. I'll see you guys very soon, and yeah, bye!